they got here. We're at the place we think is the ford that Al Hodgson talked about, and where people would have put in to go up to the film site before that road was built up there. And we think before this bridge existed, this is the ford. It must have come down there and caught up onto this road, old road cut we see here.
Like this goes down, and we're assuming this is a ford across the Bluff Creek here, because that bridge was not in at the time. Now he has this road following the right side of the creek.
And the other road was up here, so it branched off here. Both roads would ford the creek and then split and go this way. And according to Barbara Wasson's book, the campsite is somewhere around half a mile or less upstream from here, which we're hopefully going to be able to ascertain. I don't know if you can see that looks kind of like there could have been a road before they recontoured it to put in the bridge at one time. This is the only place there could have been a ford anywhere near Louse Camp. We saw that there's a steep cliff all the way up from Louse Camp to here, so either Patterson and Gimlin camped down there and Barbara Wasson is wrong, or they came in through here. And that's also what Al Hodgson said. So I think we can go with that. It's pretty reliable.
Well, the 1973 topo map, the earliest one available, clearly shows the road crossing the creek right here, same place it does on the current edition of the map, but the bridge wasn't in yet by 1973, so calling this the ford is a no-brainer. But this is beautiful country. Proximity, of course, to the Trinity Alps, Marble Mountains wilderness, and Russian wilderness sort of takes the heat off of it, I guess. But this really is.
This ain't a half a mile, but this is one place we think they might have camped, just because in all the accounts they don't talk about fording the creek a number of times. When they were back at their campsite after delivering the film down to town, they were talking about the creek rising up and how they had to get across it. So here you got the creek where they could easily have observed it rising and thinking it's going to flood our camp and block our access to that ford there. But you know, that might just be an incomplete aspect of the story that was told, like how many times they forded the creek, we don't really know that. But just by the logic of it, the fact that they didn't talk about fording it twice, I'm thinking they did just once. But
and that's the first ford they can do on the Bluff Creek, right? It's the one we just started at.
And if this wasn't their campsite, I'm not sure. They would have had to drive up across the creek there, because there's a natural rock outcropping right there. So you would think in their account they would have said, well, we had to cross the creek many times. It was horrible. You know, the rain was torrential. But that's what makes me think it must be here.
I mean, it's not that bad of a crossing. You can see farther up where if you continue along this creek, you cross there a little bit, and it's really not that deep. So cross the other side and keep going.
But it would have been really deep if they were in a flood wash, you know, a major rain outbreak. This creek will rise up and get really raging and nasty. So you would have thought that would have been part of their story if they had to keep, you know, if they had to drive in the creek, which you see there's no road there. The creek would have been the road. So you would have thought that you'd hear that in their story. And also, would their truck have survived?
That's right, not the four-wheel drives of today.
That's a two-wheel drive big truck with a horse trailer and a sleeping cabin on the top. And they didn't have a trailer, they had the horses in the back. But some kind of enclosed thing on the back of it to cover the horses.
All right, shall we continue?
I would say.
Bigfoot researcher Daniel Perez, the creator and publisher of the Bigfoot Times, has been following this subject for years. In 1992, he compiled a comprehensive booklet on the PG film site. In one of his newsletters, he shared photos and descriptions of the 1965 Chevrolet Dually they used that trip.
This is great too.
So this was probably all covered with silt.
Well, I could see Barbara Wasson saying this was a half mile, but that I can't. It's not so far, really. But
No.
I can't quite see her saying a half mile for that.
Well, we have to get to the first creek, which is coming up here.
We may just never know.
How far up do you think we are so far?
Well, you can't trust the GPS in this. The last good numbers were at the first creek bed at a 1/12 of a mile, or the first area we stopped at. Second area, a few more 100 feet.
So we're within a quarter mile, guesstimation.
Yeah, I would say we're about a quarter mile up, just from the GPS when it was working and our walking speed.
And
So this is certainly a plausible area. All of this is well under 40 years old, by my approximation, and if they were following a improvised road, that would be the way I'd run it.
We might be looking at an old road cut, we don't know, but it seems like they would have come up along this side of the bank and probably forded here. This looks like it might be a nice sandbar they can use as a road bed for a while.
Here's the GPS location where we found the rebar.
Well, it's an old game trail anyways.
You think this is wide enough to camp?
Well, I think the camp is probably downstream from here, but who knows? If I were plowing a logging track up through here, I'd probably have taken this cut right here to avoid being in the creek as much as possible. And we got rebar. What's that for?
Piece of rebar right in the middle of our little road passing area here.
Of course, this could be someone's mark saying this is the Patterson film from back in the day. Who put that rebar there is what I'd like to know.
We'll ask our expert.
Ian, what's the purpose of that thing there?
Hi, Aaron. Show us your stuff.
I don't know what that is for.
Something peculiar. Bar that people said Rene was using when he did his surveying work here, probably in 1977, which would correspond with that picture from Bigfoot Times just this year. Who knows? I can't imagine anyone else bothering to put a mark there.
I guess you really have to ask the question, why is this piece of rebar here on this gravel bar
I'm asking it.
approximately a half mile up? That's a good question.
And if I were to make a camp, I might not want to be right down in the creek bed like those other sites
Right,
were.
those are too low to the creek.
They may have been more sand back in the day from that flood, but this is actually up off the creek level. So you're a little safer from flooding and you're more comfortable making a camp here.
And I would say the average age of these trees is, most of these are well under 43 years of age.
They're all babies.
I like this because it's high enough up, sense of security, and a lot of trees have grown up in here. But
Well, half a mile maybe too.
I'd say we're pretty right in there, the half mile range there.
That might correspond with Barbara Wasson's book a little better.
It does. As a matter of fact, why don't we go ahead and quote from that?
Okay, Bob Gimlin awoke one sunny day in their camp, some 1/2 miles or so north of where the bridge over Notice Creek crosses Bluff Creek.
That's ambiguous.
It says bridge over Notice Creek crossing Bluff Creek.
Is that where we are now?
Does that mean above,
Well,
upstream? That's the bases we were going on.
Bigfoot lives.